99-cent rental.
This is 99 Cent Rental. I'm your host, Bryan White, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Dave White. Hey, Dave, how you doing over there? Exasperated sigh.
Well, look, I am having a hell of a day. It's been real shit weather. Been, I don't know what you call it. It's like when snow falls out of the sky, but it's also like just big globs of slush falling out of the sky. I mean, is that still snow? I guess it's still snow. I don't care. It's terrible. And then I look at the news, and, you know, I try not to bring up the news here because I'm like, hey, maybe people want to, like, not focus on that, but I'm gonna do it right now. Fucking RFK Jr.?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying not to think about that.
I am.
The initiative that he is spearheading is looking to take hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin very seriously as treatments for COVID, which is just absolutely fucking ridiculous. But
not a thing.
Apart from that, he's got it out for certain medications that make it so that I'm not a problem.
Yeah, look, I'm a crazy person.
But
You're a crazy person.
I'm not a burden on society. That I'm not saying I'm dangerous or anything like that, but just me without the medication is just kind of bad for everybody. So,
yeah.
So when I saw that shit in his crosshairs, I started to kind of worry just a little bit. And so,
look,
yeah,
God has taken out every member of that family and left only the ones who are of no value. And that is very frustrating.
I know. We are living in the end times, man. We are ruled by the Antichrist.
And I'm like, hey, maybe we should just laugh about it, but I don't want to laugh about it. It's terrible and awful. I want to rant about it.
Yeah, sometimes you can't.
But that's where I'm at. I'm just putting that out there for everybody.
My God, this is a very special episode for me. Why you got to bring me down like that?
I'm going to bring it back up. Don't worry.
Listen, give me $5 or stop talking about RFK.
Yes. Inside jokes.
I know. I can throw shade at the best of them. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. So it's hard to explain to someone who never had the experience what a trip to the video store was like back in the day. The shelves were choked with absolutely bizarre crap made on tiny budgets, completely divorced from any recognizable reality, and it was the best. And we intend to talk about every one of them. Tonight's movie is a singularity in the world of exploitation filmmaking. It is a movie that launched 1,000 lesser movies.
I dare say it is not an exploitation film.
Oh, no. But it is exactly the sort of movie that causes basically anybody with $300,000 worth of lira in Italy to go, maybe we could do that too.
Yeah, we had to find a way to cram some of these movies in here because they're really good.
Because I'll tell you what, 1981, this was not the only big exploitation sort of flashpoint for 1981, because another extremely important movie to the Italians came out in 1981, and I'll mention it briefly. We won't get too deep into the weeds.
Was it La Dolce Vita?
It was La Dolce Vita.
That's important to the Italians.
It was Fellini's Satyricon.
That's not important to the Italians.
No. Just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. You want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us on Instagram at Bring Me the X Pod, and Dave's over there at That Queer Wolf. I'm also
for now, I'm over there. God damn it.
I know. The moment a viable alternative comes up, we're probably gonna fucking pick up stakes and get the fuck out of town because it's not good over there. I'm also on TikTok, which I don't know if they're trustworthy either.
I would say, I feel like, I've made some jokes about TikTok. I've done a bit. Right. But you know what? They seem like they're doing a hell of a lot better than Meta.
Yeah. Maybe that's the source. Maybe that's the future for us. I hesitate to say it.
I don't think anybody wants to just watch videos of me. I can barely convince them to listen to me. Oh, but they love a true crime story, don't they?
Oh, hey,
I'm all wound up.
Just listen, take a deep breath. Just let it out because we're going to have fun tonight.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, look us up by name over there. And if you don't know, we have another show called Bring Me the Axe. Our latest episode covering Blackula is out now. And it's a good one.
That's good.
It's a good
movie.
I encourage you to listen to it. It's a hell of an episode. Blackula's out now. We'll be back next week with a look at the absolutely singular movie Night of the Living Dead as we celebrate 2 years of Bring Me the Axe. 2 goddamn years.
I know.
It's fantastic, man. Who knew?
Not me. I can't remember the last time you did anything for 2 years.
I did cinema suicide.
I'm surprised you're
I did
still
cinema
married.
suicide for like 10 years, so give me a break, will you? You can also contact us directly at 99centrentalpod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a cheesy movie that you love. We'd like to hear us give it the business. And if you would like to support us on Patreon, you can look us up over there at patreon.com/bringmetheaxepod. There's a couple of tiers you can join there. Subscribers at the $5 a month tier can look forward to our bi-monthly X-Files rewatch pod, Do You Think I'm Spooky? We've also got our monthly Bring Me the Axe Millennium Edition episodes where we're looking at movies of the modern age. Our latest episode covering Barbarian is out now, and we're right around the corner from our episode about Talk to Me with a couple of very special guests that I'm sure you will be very excited about.
Yes, talk to me.
Jesus Christ.
I'm never letting it go.
It's never going to end. Oh, yeah. There's also my bi-weekly DJ show, Radio Free Haddonfield, and the weeks when Do You Think I'm Spooky is off. That's a lot of fun. I enjoy putting those together. I hear people enjoy listening to them.
Yeah, dance music.
The latest one is dance music. It's a celebration of the works of Giorgio Moroder. Yeah, expect a surprising mixtape of everything from rock to disco. This week it's disco to punk over there. Once again, that's patreon.com/bringmetheaxepod. And also, get a t-shirt, get a hoodie.
Yes,
Check the show notes for the link.
Give us your money.
For fuck's sake. What are we doing here?
I promise I'm not always like this. I'm usually more fun. If this is your first time, this is a bad impression I'm giving. I mean, it's not wholly off the mark, but it's not quite accurate.
This is the Generation X curmudgeonliness I'm told about in our Apple reviews.
Yeah, like why does the gay one always shout about stuff all the time?
There's got to be a shouty one on a podcast. Yeah, and speaking of Apple Podcasts, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube now. Search us by name and subscribe if you prefer to consume your podcast that way. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So do it. It takes a second, and it's helpful.
Yeah, it'll make me
don't
feel
cost
better.
you nothing.
Yeah, I'll feel validated.
I love seeing that number climb. And when like a new written review comes in, I'm like, God damn, even when it's one that changes every couple of weeks, I'm like,
looking at you, that one guy.
I'm like, listen, this person is taking some time out of their day to write a little bit of a little thoughtful note towards us. And I appreciate it. Even you, that dude who keeps changing your review. Bring me the axepod@gmail.com. I must know why. I must know why you do this.
Yeah, is it pathological or you just have a lot of time on your hands?
I see it, and I laugh every time because it is very, very funny. I gotta know why you do that. Just please, if you're listening, let me know.
You remember that John Waters said something once about like he gave his father some like a piece of art and his father was like, I said something about how much he hated it or something. He was like, and you'd think that was a bad gift, but my father was moved by art. And isn't that the whole point of art? Is to move. So I guess either way.
I love it. I fucking love that. I love that. So yeah, I'm gonna keep at it. And if you listen on YouTube, do us a favor and give the episode a like and leave a comment. We love hearing from you guys. I just want to get that all out of the way right at the top of the show because we are talking about the greatest movie ever made. Here's the goddamn trailer.
New York, 1997. The entire city is a walled maximum security prison. The bridges are mined. The rivers are patrolled. And the United States Police Force has everything under control.
I'm going in.
John Carpenter's Carpenters escape from New York, the high adventure of the future. One man must go in where no man has ever gotten out. John Carpenter's Escape from New York. The greatest escape of them all is about to blow the future apart.
The greatest escape of them all is about to blow the future apart.
Has Kurt Russell ever looked better? No, he hasn't.
No, he absolutely has not. I actually had a conversation with somebody last night in a sort of unrelated Discord that I was watching the movie, and I was like, I just put a picture of Snake Plissken in there, and the whole place just like lit up with like melting hearts, people just falling about and like rending garments. Like, this man is unbelievably attractive in this movie.
He is a stone cold fox.
Absolutely fucking handsome as hell. Have you seen his son Wyatt recently?
Look exactly the same.
He looks exactly like he is the best of Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn combined into a single person.
Those are two very beautiful people.
Yeah. Yeah. Unreal. Just no, this movie was made for him.
Yeah.
Like, and given that some of the alternative picks for Snake Plissken that were floated, like, this would not have been the same movie if it wasn't for him. And what's crazy is Avco was like, Kurt Russell, the fucking Disney kid, the guy from fucking Gilligan's Island. And John Carpenter was like, yeah, he's awesome. He's going to do this. And they were like,
listen,
yes.
Always trust John Carpenter. Unless he gives you an Invisible Man movie with Chevy Chase, then don't trust him. But that's just those one circumstance. Every other time, trust him.
No, if John Carpenter's movies have taught me anything, it's always trust John Carpenter. If I said, hey, John Carpenter, where's a good place to eat in downtown LA? And he gave me a place just off the top of his head, I would take his word for it.
Or you'd be like, hey, John Carpenter, should I watch that last movie, The Ward, that you made? He'd be like, absolutely not. And you'd be like, I knew it. And I knew you'd tell me the truth.
Here's the thing. I watched it.
It's bad.
It's
bad. It's real bad.
The fact that I could see the twist coming within 10 minutes of the movie starting, I was like, oh no, please, please don't be that.
Nobody wanted to be there. Nobody wanted to be doing that. I don't know how they all got roped into it.
Oh, poor John. Because when that movie ended, I was like, John Carpenter made that?
That's how you're going out, huh, buddy? Okay.
No, that was him going like, see, guys, I'm done. This is all I got left.
Now, Johnny Cash gave us the best 4 albums of his life on the way out the door. You gave us The Ward.
Oh, poor John. Yeah, man, let me tell you something. I have stated this numerous times on this very podcast. I will tell everybody. I told this to Adrienne Barbeau herself once. This is my favorite movie of all time. And it's not even close.
I find that surprising, but not really surprising. It's a very good movie.
The thing is I can't really explain it. But and I'll tell a story. There's nothing really to it. Dad took me to work once with him, like on a weekend. He was doing some post-production at a studio, like a soundstage in Dedham, Massachusetts. Yeah. I haven't been there in a million years. Or maybe I drove through there on the way to fucking Great Woods or whatever it's called now. But I don't know. I think he just needed to take me with him to kind of get me out of mom's hair or something like that. And so he brings me in, and it is him and like one other guy in an editing suite. And he sticks me in what they called the client's lounge, which is just like, there's big sofas, big comfy couches, a fucking huge like projection TV. Remember those ones that had like the red, green, and blue lights in front of it that projected onto the screen. It was one of those. And like a really high end like stereo system and a VCR. It was really like the shit. This was like a home theater system in like 1984, like put together by people who knew their shit. And he's like looking for something for me to do. And there's one videotape sitting on top of the VCR. And he says, Escape from New York. This movie is great. And he puts it on. Now, in the passage of time, I've come to sort of understand that Dad had probably never seen that movie.
He probably still hasn't seen it, which is a shame.
And I have told this story several times, to which he adamantly refuses to believe that he put this movie on for me.
Really? Because one time he took us to work and put on the Truth or Dare video. Yeah. It was just like, here you go. I got to go out or whatever.
Yeah. And so so he puts he basically puts it in the slot, leaves the room, and then the picture comes up, and like, of course, the first thing you hear is that song, and the titles come up, and that song
is fucking badass.
Clicked with me immediately. I was like, I'm like 10 years old at the time, or like 9, and I'm like, what am I hearing right now? Like, what is this? This is incredible.
What are these dulcet tones?
Yeah. And then like the thing comes up and the movie starts, and I was enraptured. I have never seen anything like this. And this was like, I've never been exposed to something that resonated with me so perfectly. Like whatever like wavelength I was like vibrating on, this one was like a perfect fucking match, because as soon as that movie was over, I rewound it and watched it again. And then one of the other clients came in also with his son, who was a little older than me. And he did the same thing. He plopped him in. He's like, here's Jim's kid. And he said, and he's like, hey, sup? And I'm like, sup? And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, here's this movie. Have you ever heard of Escape from New York? And he went, no. And I went, well, get ready to have your fucking mind blown. And I put it on for him again. And at the end of the movie, he was like, holy shit, that was amazing. So,
well, I'm going to tell you something. As I was writing my notes, I was like, at its base, this is a movie that is made for 12-year-old boys.
Oh God, it's a comic book.
There's more going on eventually, but fundamentally, this is a movie for boys.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
it
absolutely.
Guns, explosions.
This is the ultimate testosterone fiesta. There's guns, there's car chases, there's fighting.
He's a badass.
There's the future. It's kind of, it's basically a Western in a science fiction package.
Yeah.
It's got everything. It should come as no surprise that like I was also like really into comic books, and also like every time I heard like 84, you started to hear like Twisted Sister, Quiet Riot on the radio and stuff like that. I'd hear like loud rock and roll. That shit also caught my attention in the same way. So like this movie was just the culmination of absolutely everything that I would like rolled up into a single package.
Yeah, it is my second favorite John Carpenter score, third favorite John Carpenter movie.
No shit.
Yeah. I'm going to put The Fog and Halloween before this.
Yeah, I can understand that.
There's more to Halloween than there is to this movie. There is not much happening in this movie aside from action.
Oh, it's just action. And it's also like, it shows you that John Carpenter is a man of many talents. He wears many hats. This is a guy who very early on was like kind of pegged as the horror movie guy. And then he's like, but wait, what if I made an action movie? And they were like, can you do it for $5 million? And he went, I guess. And
he's like, what choice do I have?
Yeah. It turned out one of the best fucking action movies of the 1980s in the early 1980s, and then would go on to do it again several more times.
Yeah. He is the horror master and all this, but and that's really all because of Halloween.
Yeah.
Because he's made just as many action and sci-fi movies as he has horror. I mean, they're probably in equal number. Like, and then there's some overlap, obviously, but his action movies are just as good, if not better.
Yeah, yeah. He is an I don't know.
He is a remarkably creative person.
That's exactly what it is. And like, I think that he studied the source material with like the same kind of fucking scrutiny that we look at these movies, and is able to sort of like translate his favorite shit onto screen, but also kind of dress it up in ways that make it uniquely his own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has a very rich imagination.
God, I fucking love John Carpenter.
Like, you think about something like this, and then, something like Halloween, which is a very basic story, or The Fog, which is barely a story at all, and then something like Big Trouble in Little China, which is like very complicated, a little bit convoluted, a little bit offensive. But generally, it is a big, exciting, explosive movie. Like, he can kind of do it all. He won't anymore. He refuses, but I get it. He's like 80 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. Good God. I owe so much I owe so much to this man. And this movie is central to that, because this was, I think I've said it before. I think when we did Halloween, I talked about this a little bit, because this was the first John Carpenter movie that I knowingly saw. I believe I'd seen Dark Star on TV by this point.
Ugh, yuck.
But I didn't make the connection, because this is the one that comes up where it's John Carpenter's Escape from New York. And then you start to notice that like basically all of his movies do that, where it's John Carpenter's blah, blah, blah. And like this was probably the first time when like I would see a movie that was like had anything to do with him that I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And I would get excited about it.
Yeah, he is an auteur.
He's a fucking auteur.
And yet not at the same time. He is
No, that's
very
the thing,
much
is he's
the
very-
leader of a group.
He's very unpretentious, you know, and he is, you know, where the auteurs were, you know, a one-man show all the way. Like we did this like all the way, like in our other John Carpenter episodes, where he was a guy who he got the shit done that he needed because he just trusted his crew to do what they needed to do. Especially when Dean Cundey was like, "Listen, I need to invent an entirely new lens to make this movie. Are you cool with that?"
And he was like, sure, you're the greatest cinematographer in the business. So yes, it's fine.
Yeah. My God. So you want to talk some facts here?
Go on.
All right. So the year was 1981,
Heard of it.
year of our Lord. So here were some other movies that were released in 1981. I want to see if you could pick up on the pattern. Piranha 2, The Spawning, came out in 1981. All right.
Terrible. Great soundtrack, though. Stelvio Cipriani.
Was it? Oh, no shit. All right. Halloween 2 came out this year.
Not a great movie. Pretty good soundtrack, though.
Night Riders was released in 1981.
Neither good movie nor good soundtrack.
Scanners came out in 1981.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both good.
Yep. And lastly, rounding it out, The Cannonball Run was released in 1981.
I won't comment.
So Piranha 2, directed by James Cameron, who did models and matte paintings in this one. Halloween 2, obviously, John Carpenter connection. Night Riders, directed by George A. Romero. There's a character named after him in this movie. Scanners.
Okay, yeah.
There's a movie named after David Cronenberg, or a character named after David Cronenberg in this movie. And lastly, The Cannonball Run also featured Adrienne Barbeau in 1980.
Yeah, that's a reach. That feels like a reach.
I know. I got 4 cool, like, connected movies, and I was like, shit, what's left? So our director is, like we said, John Carpenter, the greatest genre film director of all time.
Agreed.
He wrote this one in 1974, coming off the heels of Dark Star. Following that movie, John had difficulty selling features, but had some success selling scripts. When Halloween worked out, he landed a 2-picture deal with Avco, and the first of that contract was The Fog. Go listen to our episode about The Fog. That's basically 2 hours of us making sweet, sweet love to that picture.
That is my favorite John Carpenter movie.
Yeah. And the second movie was supposed to be The Philadelphia Experiment.
Glad it didn't work out that way.
I know. Apparently, he read the book, which the book is conspiracy theory nonsense. And as high as he could possibly get, John was writing this script and just could not finish it. And so they were like, well, what do you got for us, John? Because you owe us a second movie. And he was like, well, I've had this one that I wrote back in the 70s. What do you think? And they were like, can you do it for $6 million? And he went, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's about how much I don't like the United States government.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were like, yeah, I get it.
Our cast includes, of course, Kurt Russell, the handsomest man in film.
It's true.
Former child star, best known for his Disney roles. You might remember him from such TV roles as Gilligan's Island, Lost in Space, and Then Came Bronson.
Wow. That sounds
I know,
like
I did it in the
garbage.
Troy McClure voice because that sounds like a Troy McClure show.
I remember the one where he has the monkey.
Uh,
And then there's the computer wore tennis shoes. He's in that one.
Yep.
That's about all I remember.
Those are the only 2 I remember, too, because I think those are the only 2 that we ever actually saw. And I haven't watched a Kurt Russell Disney movie in like a million years.
And his father was a director, writer?
I believe
Something.
so. I believe that's how
He
he
was a
got
something.
in, like in on it, because like he'd been acting since I believe the late 50s, like when he was a little Kurt Russell, little beautiful man.
Okay.
Yep. Kurt was actively trying to shed that reputation in the 70s, and he hooked up with Carpenter on the TV movie Elvis, which, have you ever seen that? Because I've never watched
I have. It's not very good.
Yeah.
I also don't like Elvis though. Like, I mean, it's fine, I guess.
Nah. Yeah. He plays Elvis in it. Thus began a love affair that set the pace for John Carpenter's best movies of the 1980s. Nowadays, he's a national treasure and the only man in America qualified to play Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. Have you seen those Santa Claus movies? Because I have, and he is great. They're okay movies, but he is fucking great.
I mean, I haven't seen the Santa Claus movies. No, I don't. They're not below me. I watch Hallmark, but I just haven't had the time for them. I did start watching Monarch. Is that what it's called?
Oh yeah, I got sidetracked on that one very early
Yeah,
on.
it's a little slow, and I kind of I bailed. I'm not good with TV. So I bailed on it pretty quickly. But he's in that, and he's good.
Yeah, if there were more Godzilla, I might watch more Monarch.
Yeah. See, that's the problem. Is there's
not enough Godzilla. There's no Godzilla in it, really. A little bit. Yeah. According to Kurt Russell, this is his favorite character and the favorite movie of his entire career.
I get it.
I get it. We've also got Donald Pleasance, the other inspiration for Austin Powers' Dr. Evil.
He's a weird dude.
Is he?
Was a weird dude. I never have been able to figure out where he was coming from with anything. Like, he acted like when they made Halloween, he acted like he was doing everybody a fucking favor by being in this movie. Have you seen some of the shit he's been in before and after?
Yeah. Like, I mean,
John Carpenter single-handedly saved this man's career.
He did more Amicus than Hammer. So, like, take it down a notch there, Donald Pleasance.
Yeah. I mean, he was in Raw Meat, which is a fucking terrible movie. He was in Phenomenon, which is a great movie, but his character is extremely weird. What's that one where he's the Italian detective? Late Giallo, Nothing Underneath.
That's the one.
Is that what it's called? He's ridiculous in that. It's like, listen here, Shakespeare. You need to reel it in, okay?
Yeah. You love him at Halloween. Apparently, so did John Carpenter because he brought him back to play the American president. Pleasance made up some complicated backstory for how he came to be the president, which John just kind of threw out. Something having to do with Margaret Thatcher taking over the world and making America a colony again.
Make America a colony again.
Yeah.
Well, we're on our way.
I'd be all right. I'd be all right with that.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. And rounding it out, we got Isaac Hayes, A Man for All Seasons.
Isaac Hayes makes me sad.
What's that?
He makes me sad, Isaac Hayes. His life had a not great ending.
Yeah, true. Yeah. He was an Academy Award winner, one of the originators of the Stax Southern Soul Sound, and a Scientologist.
Yeah,
that's the part that bums me out.
Yeah, because he kind of got I guess he had early onset dementia, and he kind of got roped in.
Oh,
and then they exploited him until his death.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a great relationship with the South Park guys that I believe he was kind of pressured into destroying after they did the Scientology episode.
And they were really caught off guard and really sad about it.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Yep. Apart from being a successful musician, composer of one of the most recognizable movie theme songs of all time.
Who's the Black Friday dick that's a sex machine to all the chicks? Shaq. You're damn right. Who's the cat that won't cop out when there's danger all about? Shaq. Right on.
He starred in his own blaxploitation movie, Truck Turner. And he had recurring roles on the Rockford Files before being brought in to play the Duke of New York, #1.
Listen, Truck Turner, awesome soundtrack.
Yeah. Because Isaac Hayes did it, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just got a new reissue. It's fantastic.
This is we always just kind of do the top three, but this is a mega ensemble John Carpenter cast too. We had Adrienne Barbeau, Harry Dean Stanton, Lee Van Cleef, who is every bit as awesome in this movie as Kurt Russell.
And he can barely walk.
I know. We had Charles Cyphers and Tom Atkins,
who barely say anything at all. I mean, Tom Atkins really doesn't say much. No. Charles Cyphers does a little bit.
Yeah. So this movie was made on a budget of $6 million, and it ultimately pulls in $50 million. Which, after that kind of money, they're just like, so John, what do you want to do next? And he's like, I got this remake of The Thing from Another World. What do you guys think of that? And then it was all kind of downhill from there.
Oh, God damn it!
I know, I don't care for that. The effect that this movie had, and the Road Warrior as well, which was the sort of other big exploitation flashpoint in 1981. released in the same year. The effect that they had on the exploitation movie industry cannot possibly be overstated, because from here on out, I mean, we just did Bronx Warriors, or no, we just did Escape from the Bronx. And Bronx Warriors, which like neither of these movies, nor like many of the other sort of Italian exploitation versions of these movies would exist without them. And that's a whole galaxy of badness, but like enjoyable junk food badness.
Yeah. Well, I would say Bronx Warriors would not exist without
the Warriors, really. But yeah.
The Escape from the Bronx would not exist without either of those movies.
Right. And I mean, Escape from the Bronx is like almost a word for word ripoff of this, where they're like, the Bronx has been declared a no-go zone. You can't go there. We're condemning the whole thing. We're going to put a wall around it.
Now, this is a weird one because it is ostensibly a very, very simple movie. And in execution it is too, but it's coming at a time. So he writes it in 1974, right after Watergate. And so there's all this like social upheaval, and there's a lot of cynicism just sort of about the government at the time. And also, this is one of the things we talked about in The Warriors and Bronx Warriors. In urban areas, like sort of everything, there was a lot of blight. What would be called blight? It's a little more complicated than that, but a lot of crumbling infrastructure. And so like kind of everywhere you look as the country reaches the end of the 70s, things just kind of don't look good. Everything's really bleak. And so I feel like as much as this is a giant action movie, there is a kind of criticism, a very astute criticism, just sort of layered right underneath of it. Like he also said that he was influenced by Death Wish.
Yeah.
And he didn't like the idea, sort of the politics of Death Wish, because Death Wish is like a super Republican movie.
It's a very reactionary movie. I'd say basically everything vigilante related is extremely reactionary.
But what did resonate with him was that feeling like shit's just falling apart and nobody's really doing anything about it. And they're all just kind of pointing fingers.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of where this comes from. So it's, it's like he never made anything as base as sometimes his movies can be. They're always a little smart because he's a very, I think, kind of an intellectual person.
He's a very thoughtful guy.
Yeah. Who can't keep his mouth shut.
Which is a quality of him that I love.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And like, even in his movies, he can't just make an action movie. It has to be an action movie that's also sort of like taking a couple swipes at the man or whoever. Mm-hmm. Usually the man.
It's a sort of a very boomer notion, but his just like there's actually like some substance there. Like in his case, it's actually very thought out, Well, and it's compassionate a lot of the time. It's like it was never, if you watch something like Rambo is extremely reactionary. And that's not about people. That's about politics, essentially. It's about pushing a political agenda that is sort of imperialistic. And his movies are never like that. It's sort of like, look at what's happening to these people you've dumped into New York. Right. And there's even a little blip that it reads a little cringy, but it is explicitly anti-imperialist. Mm-hmm. And I can kind of tell that he's got a little piece of him is on that lady's side,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
am all in on that lady's side, though. I would be a part of the People's Liberation Army or whatever they're called.
Well, I don't know that that's a good idea. They were usually very, very misguided people who were perhaps well-intended. Well, that's the other thing I think. Look,
if they're going to crash an airplane into New York City with the president on board, I'll be the guy in the cockpit.
Well, that's what I think is also kind of interesting is that in the 70s, hijackings were really big.
Holy shit.
Like hijackings were having a day. It's like kidnapping in the 80s.
There is a book called The Skies Belong to Us, I think it's
Loved
called.
It. And I recommended it to you, didn't
I? I think we both kind of caught on to it at the same time. Because that book is fucking incredible. And also, given the shit that you've got to do just to get on an airplane these days, it will blow your fucking mind that you could just bring a fucking rifle, like a loaded rifle.
Oh, yeah. No, you can have it like You could have it slung over your shoulder.
You could just, you know,
screaming about Karl Marx as you walked up onto the plane, and
you could walk out of the plane saying, "Boy, I can't wait to jump into the cockpit and fly to Havana."
And they'd be like, "Oh, you take your seats, have a drink.
Here, would you like? Let me light your cigarette." Yeah, that's a hell of a book. I absolutely strongly recommend that one.
So the other question I had about this movie, and I posed this to you earlier, was,
which is wild because I had the exact same thought while watching it last night.
Yeah, so there is we've obviously watched these Italian knockoffs as well, and there's they're ripping it off, but there's something missing from those. Like, there's something that the Italians aren't understanding that's like fundamental to this movie, and a little bit to the Warriors as well, to a lesser extent. But like, I can't quite put my finger on it. So like, they're putting just as much effort into it.
Well, okay, so I have thought about this a little bit, and I think that really, really, honestly, what lies at the core of the difference between, say, a movie like this and a movie like Escape from the Bronx is time and about $5 million.
I think there's something more than that.
But there is something. There is a cultural point of reference that they lack.
And so here's what I think it is. And this could just be me projecting onto this thing from our terrible, terrible present. But I think what's missing and what the Italians didn't quite get, the cultural point that they didn't get, is that genuine concern for everything, and that sort of the social critique, but also I think a real fear that people had, that was the part they really didn't get, because obviously they were coming out of that already in a very different way. That was a much darker moment for them. I think they would look at this and be like, well, why are you worried?
Italy in particular does not have the same sort of relationship with capitalism that we do.
Or authority. They have a very different relationship with authority. Though we're cozying up.
Here's the thing:
fine.
because I got thoughts on that too. Is because the way that all of those nations are sort of mashed together in Europe makes them all sort of vulnerable to direct warfare in a way that the United States is kind of protected from, because like we're just this fucking island. But like,
well, except for the 20 or so countries on either side of us.
but what I mean is we have, since the founding of this nation, we have had a fairly stable political situation with a fairly stable economic situation. Neither are great, and as we're learning right now, highly vulnerable to coercion and corruption. But
stupidity.
But Italy in particular had the same sort of experience with like fascism and socialism as like France did and Spain did, where it fluctuates wildly, like every 20 years or so, where there's just like this new strongman in charge. And then there's this fucking cataclysmic thing, like a world war that happens that unseats that guy and kind of puts the opposing party in its absence, which leads to this kind of struggle. Like we've talked about the years of lead a little bit when we talk about Italy, which is mostly gang warfare, but it was driven primarily by partisan dogfighting,
and corruption.
Yeah,
like profound corruption,
like literal communists and anarchists fighting like fascists in the street, bombing train stations, drive-by shootings, and a lot of it was driven entirely by the government and organized crime.
Maybe that's what's missing. I think maybe the thing they're not getting, and it might have just been a naive concern on the part of Americans that like, this is all going so badly. What's happening? Why is this happening? And who is to blame? And sort of like, a lot of these things are people trying to work out who is to blame. And in places where they have had, ups and downs with authoritarian regimes, it's a little more stark there, where they're just sort of like, well, that's nothing.
Yeah. Oh, right.
And
right.
so
Because I've also made very similar.
I've
also made very similar observations about the same kind of pulpy pop culture that like where in the United States, our comic books have always been about like superheroes, Captain America, Superman, like, that kind of triumphant spirit that, sort of just is kind of unearned in the United States, but it's kind of like that's where our ideals lie, is in these kind of incorruptible spirits of the one singular force that can sort of oppose this kind of horrible regime that we face, this kind of like bottomless pocket that can just buy anybody. Where in Europe, like French comics, Italian comics, we've got like their most popular comic book heroes are like fucking villains, like Fantomas.
Very sexy.
Fantomas,
Very sexy.
Huh?
Very sexy.
Yeah, Fantomas, fucking diabolique, satanic. Also, in France, there was a very successful series of like pulp criminal novels called Doberman.
Also Tintin.
But
Remember him?
But he was just a little kid.
Well, he was a hero. Okay, kids can be heroes too. I don't know why you have to separate them out like that.
But like they had they're kind of the same way that we would look at a Captain America. They would look at these kind of like gentlemen criminals in a way that was kind of like, that was the way that they opposed whatever authoritative force was kind of driving, like kind of pushing them all down. It was just,
well, you'd think they would get Snake Plissken then.
Yeah.
Well, they do get Snake Plissken. I think what they don't get is the more hand-wringing concern.
Sure.
I think that's what's missing. Is like those movies, those Italian knockoffs, they get the spirit of the thing, that it's fun, it's explosive, and there's lots of zingers. What they don't get is that what underlies all of that is a genuine concern that these are actually things that are happening. They're just not happening in this quite such a big, illustrated, dramatic way right now.
Right. Either that or they just look at what we were going through and we're like, well, it's about time the Americans got a little of this.
Well, it's hard to argue with that.
Right. So we've got some alternative picks for Snake Plissken, which one of them blows my fucking mind. Avco wanted Charles Bronson. And
the guy would have been like 50 something at the time.
Yeah. What was it? Death Wish 2 came out this year and he looks like an old man in that movie. Or wait, he was either Death Wish 2 or fucking 10 to Midnight came out.
I think it's 10
year.
to Midnight.
So yeah, like he is just like a certified old man, but they also wanted Tommy Lee Jones, Jeff Bridges,
Charles Norris.
Oh, that's right, Chuck Norris. Yeah, thank God that they didn't go with like any of those guys. Like I got nothing against Jeff Bridges or Tommy Lee Jones. I don't think either of them would have been really great. Tommy Lee Jones is in Black Moon Rising, which is that future car movie that John Carpenter wrote.
Good.
It's not good. I watched it like last year and was like so fucking let down by it. It is unbelievably boring. And the car's in it for like 5 minutes.
There was a lot of weird, there's some other weird alternative casting stuff. I think they wanted Warren Oates to play the Brain.
Yep. Yeah, actually, he was cast to play Brain, and then he got sick and dropped out and said, "Why don't you
die like the next year?"
Yeah, he died. Yeah, he died not long after this in like something unrelated, but like Warren Oates was like not healthy at this time.
No, and if you don't know who Warren Oates is, big Western guy. He was in The Wild Bunch. He's in Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia.
Yep. Two-Lane Blacktop.
Executive. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Good movie.
Yeah. In Italy, Snake is known as Hyena.
Hyena Plissken.
Hyena.
Okay.
I think he's just known as Hyena. And also, in South Korea, he's known as Cobra.
Nice. I mean,
Marion
Cobra. Makes sense.
So we gotta talk about the soundtrack here.
Okay.
Because it is a towering achievement of fucking film composing.
It's fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. It is. This one is much larger in scope. It's not driven by a single melody in the same way that Halloween is, but this is
that Alan Howarth influence, I think.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to find where the divide is, because like I think they were working. You could tell the John Carpenter stuff is if it involves a piano, if it has a bit of a melody to it, because Howarth, his thing was he was a sound designer.
Mm-hmm.
And he had come in from this movie off the back of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, where all he did was just like sound effects and stuff.
Yeah, because he tried to touch stuff, and Jared Goldsmith was like, "Get away! Get away! Get out of here right now!
Go talk to my friend John Carpenter.
The adults are working right now. Get out!"
Yeah, and it is some of the most just memorable shit. And it's the same equipment. It's the Prophet 5 synthesizer, fucking like a real piano and shit, drum machines. It's just.
I think he pushes him to open up what he's doing a little bit and sound a little bit more, not orchestral, but they're more arrangements than they are just little melodies and cues.
Yeah.
I think that's what he pushes him to do. And I think that's why his stuff that he does now with Daniel Davies and his son is also super good.
Yeah. They go on, I believe they make seven movies, or they do 7 soundtracks together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all together. This soundtrack sold 80,000 copies in the first 6 months.
God damn.
Yeah. Which is the biggest hit for Varese Sarabande up to that point.
Listen, Varese Sarabande will take a fucking gamble on anything, and this is why they do that.
Well, they
Because
publish all the movie soundtracks.
Yeah, pretty much. They would just be like, well, we'll put out all this crappy fucking, what's that Chuck Norris USA movie?
Oh, Invasion USA.
Yeah, like they put like that shit out and like Street Savages, and then they would be like, we can do that because of John Carpenter.
That and Ennio Morricone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is a novelization of this movie by Mike McKay or Mike McKee. I'm not sure how you say that, which takes the usual creative liberties in order to stretch the page count. This one fills in some blanks, like leaving in the bank robbery, which gets cut out of the movie. And it tells the story of how Snake lost his eye in Leningrad.
Yeah, it like builds out all the characters.
Yeah, like how Bob Houck came to be the warden of the prison, and that he's also searching for his crazy son who was lost somewhere in the jail.
And this book obviously didn't have an editor.
Nope.
He's also taking cooking classes at night.
Yeah. And you wouldn't know it, but he plays the flute. There was also some subplot about how the country was slowly losing its mind due to Russian nerve gas attacks.
Nice.
Yeah, it sounds great. You can pick it. I looked it up, and there's like several copies for sale on eBay for like $50.
That's a lot of money for a shitty paperback.
There's also a board game that was published in 1981 by TSR, the original publisher of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm told it's a lot of fun. You can find a print and play versions online for free with just a search on Google.
You could probably get I looked this up not that long ago because I like spending my money.
I would kill a man. I would kill a man.
I think if I remember correctly, I was looking at like $100, $125.
The game runs
like
about $100, $125. I saw on a recent sale, but it was like a new in plastic version of it. Like it had never.
Yeah, I would pay that. I'd pay $125 for that. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll go on and buy it tonight.
One of these days, I'm gonna own one
because I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna make it rain. Who needs this money for bills?
A new version of the game. I don't think they're related. I think it's an entirely different board game that was published in 2024.
Oh, that's the people. Is it Outpost? Whatever.
I think they're the ones who basically make all of the games based on John Carpenter movies.
The one who made The Thing. Yeah.
Yeah. In 2003, Production IG, the company behind some of my favorite anime like Evangelion and The Ghost in the Shell, was in production on a Snake Plissken anime overseen by Carpenter and Deborah Hill, where Kurt Russell was ready to voice the character again. But then the whole thing crashed and burned for some reason. The only thing that remains is some concept art that I'm probably going to post on the old Instagram.
That sucks. That would have been good. I'm surprised there was never a video game.
There was a video game being developed by Namco that got dumped. Yeah, I believe
that's what I mean.
It was either for PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2. You can look it up. There's gameplay footage on YouTube.
But you'd think this would have been like a Double Dragon kind of scenario. This is primed for that format.
This either that or like fucking Metal Gear. Sneak around. Who Metal Gear, who named their character after this character.
Yeah, this is like perfect for an adaptation, and it didn't happen. I'm surprised that it didn't.
I just can't believe it. I know. It's never too late. There's still time.
That's true. I can do that.
I
have none of the skills.
Get to it. Make a video game.
I have $125. I was going to save it for the board game, but I'll put it towards this instead.
And also before we talk like reviews and shit, I'm not going to mention it. I'm not even going to describe it. There's an original opening with this that you can find on YouTube. Every version of the Blu-ray comes with it. It's an opening 10-minute segment which introduced Snake Plissken as he was committing the crime that landed him in prison. It's a bank robbery scene that's pretty low-key and not terribly compelling. Carpenter cut the scene following test screens where the audience was reporting that the scene was confusing as it didn't apparently have anything to do with the rest of the movie. Also,
nobody's recognizable other than Kurt Russell. You don't know who any of the other people are.
Yeah.
So you're like, what am I watching? What is this?
And also, the original cuts that they test screened where people were like, I have no idea what's going on, did not have the title cards or the Jamie Lee Curtis narration. So, like, it just kind of dumps you into the movie and leaves it up to you to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it's called mise en scène, Philistines.
On media res. So what the press think of this here movie?
Well, interesting. Nothing too wild.
No spicy takes?
Not really. It was pretty well received for the most part. I'm going to hit you with Vinnie Canby.
Ooh, all right.
Escape from New York is not to be analyzed solemnly. It's a toughly told, very tall tale, one of the best escape and escapist movies of the season.
All right.
The New York Times.
Vincent Canby.
Vincent Canby really liked it. Going to hit you with some Boston Globe. This one's a little longer. Although Carpenter's conception is captivating, his execution is tedious. Fuck you.
Eat shit.
He transforms an inspired social satire into tiresome melodrama, which I cannot agree with that at all. Anyway, the story is served up like fast food hamburgers from old automats, stale and dry with very little quality control.
How dare you?
And like the I Love New York television ads, it promises more than it delivers, which weird dig at New York.
I know. It's definitely, that is characteristically a Boston writer.
Yeah, get over it, Boston.
Boston always has an inferiority complex when it comes to fucking New York City.
Mm-hmm. Other thing that's always true about them, in my way. So yeah, he did not care for it.
Who is this person? Because I'm going to find him and I'm going to have a word with him.
Michael Blowen, I think he's still he at least was one of the critics until pretty recently.
Yeah.
Here's another one. A rousing, futuristic adventure film in which New York has become a giant prison. It's a lot of goofy comic book fun. 3.5 stars. The Genie.
Yeah. See, he gets it sometimes.
Well, very rarely.
just don't have him watch a horror movie.
So that was most of them. I was like, I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel until I got to this one. Escape from New York is crude, brutal, but undeniably vital. It's the kind of film widely admired in Hollywood because Carpenter and his colleagues have managed to get every cent of its relatively modest budget right up there on screen. In short, Escape from New York is a film of sleekly impressive surfaces. It can be compelling, but it's perfectly understandable that many will not be able to go along with the corrosive, pessimistic view of humanity that Carpenter projects with such force. This is so a lot of reviews I read were kind of poorly written, but there's two constants through the majority of them. One is that everybody heavily praises Joe Alves' set decoration for very good reason. It's a big standout. But the other is there's a lot of talk about how pessimistic this is, which I think is really interesting given a lot of what we were just saying is where this is coming out of. You've got basically, this is 1981, very divided America. On one hand, because we're right, this is where Reagan's getting
the dawn of Reagan.
Right, so you get a shitload of people on one side that are like, what is this communist bullshit? And then a bunch of people on the other side that were like, yeah, John Carpenter's right, this place sucks. and you can see it through all of them. Is like you take one side or the other, you can just tell where they're coming from. Like, and Kevin Thomas, that's LA Times, that's who that was. He very much liked the movie, but he acknowledged like there is going to be a lot of people that will find this divisive, that will find this a very pessimistic. And it is, I mean, it's a little nilistic.
Oh, yeah. I
mean, the ending especially.
There's going to be all these people going to be like, oh, why my action movies got to be political?
Oh, listen, if you listeners, if you know anybody who says that, I want you to tell them to kill themselves.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. But
okay, but don't
take a leather glove and slap them in the face with it.
All right, I guess that's a better alternative. Look, everything we do is political. They can shut the fuck up. I just thought it was really interesting that there was this big divide. Like some people being like, this movie is so pessimistic because that's why one of the reasons the Boston Globe didn't like it. was that it was so pessimistic. And I don't think it's pessimistic. I think there's some nihilism towards the end, but I don't really think it's pessimistic. And I think it's weird also to say, like, you know, it's a slow moving, you know, cumbersome, tedious movie. This movie fucking bangs along.
It is.
Before you know it, it's over.
It is full throttle from fucking start to finish.
I mean, it starts to get a little sluggish towards the end as they're trying to wrap it up. But, you know, that happens. You got a bunch of different threads. You got to fucking tie them up.
Yeah.
But I think it's weird to just be like, oh, it's so tedious and blah, 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 blah. What's to be done about John Carpenter?
Oh, boy. Get out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, but for the most part, people really liked it. It was very well reviewed. It's a great movie. That's why.
I mean, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, like it's not because it's not a cheap movie either. Like it's got a kind of.
I mean, in 4K, it starts to look a little cheap in some parts.
I was listening to the Carpenter and Russell commentary, and one of the things that they pointed out that I just never really taken a moment to notice was they were trying to hide Kurt Russell's dimples because it was one of his sort of characteristic like cute boy Disney qualities. And so they have this like makeup. It's supposed to be a scar, but in fucking 4K, it is clearly just like drawn with like a white crayon on his face.
Nice.
And there's so many things in the 4K, like the UHD presentations that you see that definitely don't help the movie. Like a couple of times they were definitely shooting against a schedule. And so there's like scenes where it's raining and then it's not raining in the next shot and then it's raining again in the next shot, which
no time. Everybody move on.
I never noticed this before. There's also like a thing that I'd mentioned, like the Duke of New York's car has this like holo foil like paint job to it that gives it this kind of like rainbow sheen.
Oh, it's like a pearlescent.
Yeah.
A pearlescent matte, like
mother
a finish.
of pearl finish.
Yep. Beautiful thing. Hey, before you get into it, just one more thing. Kurt Russell's stunt double in this movie, Dick Warlock.
Hell yeah. Bring on that.
Oh, my favorite Michael Myers, Dick Warlock.
The best Dick Warlock you ever saw.
Mm-hmm.
What a name. I'm surprised he never went by Richard Actually, no. Dick Warlock is...
If your last name is Warlock, you have no choice.
You gotta be Dick Warlock. I would also be Dick Warlock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. What a name.
Yeah.
Yep. So you want to talk it? Want to get into it?
Tell this story.
All right, here we go. We open on the coolest goddamn song you've ever heard.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A title card informs us that this is a goddamn Deborah Hill production.
Mm-hmm.
Title cards read.
That's why it's so good.
Yes, exactly. Actually, you know what? One of the things is there is an extra on one of the releases on the release by the sort of set photographer who explains that Deborah Hill used this movie to help get a bunch of non-union people into the union.
God damn it. She was the best person in the world.
I know. She like found some sort of workaround because like it was the usual thing. Like you can't work on a union picture unless you're in the union, but you can't get on the union unless you work on a union movie. So everybody's getting into the union on all these weird sort of rule bending producers. And
Listen, how is Mitch McConnell still alive and Deborah Hill is dead?
She's a fucking treasure.
God,
Celebrate her every day. But yeah, the title cards read by Jamie Lee Curtis inform us that in 1988, crime jumps 400%. In 1994, the government responds by walling off New York City, throws all of its criminals there for an automatic life sentence, no matter what the crime is. And
my note just says, never forget.
Oh, I know. The World Trade Center plays such a central role in this movie.
Well, because I forgot that when they made this movie, the World Trade Center had just been built.
Yeah.
Like it was a new thing. So it was like, it must have been a very kind of a novelty.
Oh yeah. There's a whole bunch of things in this movie that are novel. Like those helicopters were just starting to kind of make their way out into the civilian world because like we still had like those sort of Bell bubble helicopters. And so like the prevalence of Hueys just kind of coming off the end of fucking the Vietnam War was kind of a new thing. And so that's why they're so like prominently featured in this movie.
Well, then everybody saw in Jaws 2 when Jaws jumps out of the water and eats the helicopter, the bubble helicopter.
Right.
And they were like, well, we've got to come up with something better because obviously this is what's going to happen all the time now.
Yeah. So the entire affair is overseen by a federal police force. It is now 1997.
Now, I don't remember 1997 looking quite like this. But I do think that a lot of people in 1997 were dressing like Snake Plissken.
That's right.
Especially in Hampton Beach.
Yep. Cops arrive at the wall as a helicopter flies overhead, responding to a pair of prisoners attempting to paddle across a river. This
feels like a nod to Alcatraz to me.
Oh, yeah, it 100% was. Because I'm thinking about it. I'm like, where are these guys going to go when they get across the river? There's a fucking wall to climb.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a slow panning shot upward, reveals the city over the wall, mostly dark. The skyline is immediately recognizable.
Never forget.
Yep. The chopper tells the pair to turn back, fires a warning shot. It's unclear if they intend to turn around or not, as they just sort of flail about in the water. Then the copter blasts them and returns to base on the actual Liberty Island.
A fun moment. This is the first time that anyone had been able to film on Liberty Island at night.
Yeah.
Because they had just, like,
it looks so fucking cool.
3 months earlier, I think there was a bomb.
Yeah.
It was like a bomb scare, or like an actual bomb, I think. That's pretty big. It's pretty big risk to be like, well, sure.
Right.
It sounds like it took a lot of like finagling to get them to let them do this.
Right. There were some also awesome matte paintings and models in this movie.
I do think the matte paint. So my standard for models is Toho.
Yep.
And I'm going to say these are not Toho quality, but they're pretty good.
There are some when Snake flies into the city, there are some like overhead model shots of the model city that they built, and it is you're looking at a model, but it's a very impressive one.
Yeah.
So we pan down, and in walks Tom Atkins as Captain Remy.
My note says, I guess this is what young Tom Atkins looks like.
Establishing the order that's in charge of the country now. Faceless cops in black fatigues and dark masks.
It's what does it remind me of? These kind of like black. I mean, obviously they're trying to kind of evoke
when Mr. Burns establishes himself as the head of a new religious order, and the cops in black fatigues and black masks hold back the throng of Springfield.
It is not that. It does. I guess maybe it reminds me of the Wraith a little bit.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. So now a bus I love the way the cops look in this. Like, it is such a very cool, very sleek look.
I think they're going for a kind of futuristic SS.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like the face shields that they wear are like, they cover their entire face.
It's kind of like, have you ever seen, I'm going to assume not. Have you ever seen when they have to like, where they raise like a stranded sea otter? So sea otters will bond. They have to wear these like big giant shields over their faces so they can't tell that they're human. They look a lot like that.
Awesome.
It's like Darth Vader holding a baby sea otter.
Right. So a bus arrives at the base, letting off one single prisoner in camos, an eye patch, and a leather jacket.
The fucking beautiful lion's mane of hair.
That hair. God damn. They escort him into the station, where Jamie Lee Curtis once again informs us how the prison works. If you don't want to go in, you have the option to be killed on the premises. All you need to do is let the duty sergeant know.
And it kind of seems like that's Snake's thing. Like, that's what he's going with.
Oh, like he's going to let him kill him?
I mean, what else was his plan?
To go into the prison and just be Snake Plissken there?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Would have been a good series. Netflix.
Outside, a limo pulls up to Remy. Lee Van Cleef gets out. Remy informs him that a jet has entered New York airspace, but it isn't replying to their hails. There's a code name for the flight, but they don't recognize it. And when they do get a hold of the pilot, they get a diatribe from a hijacker who informs them that they're from a leftist resistance army intending to crash the plane inside the biggest symbol of the United States' corruption.
Now, what I loved about this scene is that she has to pull out a sheet of paper that she's written out their speech on.
Yeah, yeah. But
She's literally
at first she's like, "You're
it.
too late, assholes." You know,
And if this seems far-fetched, it wasn't. This shit happened a lot in the 60s and 70s.
That's right. Most of the hijackings that are mentioned in that book, The Skies Belong to Us, are about leftist hijackers who just want an airplane to fly them to Cuba. And then when they get there, they find out it's just not exactly what they thought it would be. They were like,
we thought communism would be cool, though. It's not cool.
Most of
Real
the time,
sad and oppressive.
Fidel Castro was like, what are we going to fucking do with these people?
Wait, he was like, get these fucking people out of here. I don't want them. American dogs.
Yeah.
I get it.
So now the flight code name comes back from Washington, identifying it as Air Force One.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, you get that sweet, like that music that goes with it where it's like, oh shit music. So yeah, we get a really cool like model shot of the plane. It's all James Cameron.
So the plane, this is one of the ones that I think in 4K doesn't read that great. It looks a lot like the stuff that they would do in like the 70s when it would be like a plane and like it gets hit by lightning or some shit.
Like,
it looks a little bit like
Airplane
that.
77.
Yeah, I fucking love that movie. But like I can imagine on screen, and I've seen this movie in the theater, and it looks great on 35.
I've never seen this movie in a theater.
I've
watched this movie. I've watched this movie in on TV 1,000 fucking times. I have watched this movie on Telemundo. I have never seen it in a movie theater.
Good. It's a good thing.
Yeah. So also the hijacker is Nancy Stevens, who played the nurse that drives up to get Michael Myers with Loomis at the beginning of Halloween.
Really?
Yep.
She just died, didn't she?
I don't know.
Last year? I think she died last year.
Oh. Also, the Secret Service guy feebly hitting the door with his rifle is Steve Ford, son of President Gerald Ford.
Well, he is rather clumsy.
Right. So now we dolly into the aircraft. We meet President Jonathan Harker.
Ooh,
Yep.
that is
Okay.
lazy even for John
That's
Carpenter.
not John Carpenter. That's actually, he's just the president in the movie. John Harker is the name of the president in the book.
Okay.
Yeah. His staff quickly ushers him into an orange egg-shaped emergency escape pod. They put a biomonitor on his wrist as Hauk and Remy watch a computer simulation of the plane flying into the city and crashing into a building.
Yeah, it looks like the escape pod is like probably the jankiest thing in the whole movie. It looks like they borrowed it from the set of like an old Doctor Who episode.
Carpenter has said like he was like a lot of the gadgets and shit. He was doing this because he liked like James Bond movies, and they always had like this kind of silly tech stuff. And so yeah, that was where he got that from.
It doesn't read. This is the one thing in the movie that just doesn't read well. Because it's like, this is cheesy looking. Like everything else is like the wrist stuff. And like you can get away with that because it's like, that's kind of action-y, but not this.
Yep. So now they locate the spot on the map that is the U.S. police force. And they get a bunch of cops into some helicopters and they fly into the prison to go get him. And apparently John Carpenter loved helicopters so much because of this movie that he got a helicopter pilot's license. And then so did Kurt Russell.
He's a weird man.
They're just two dudes, two bros.
They are. I love that they're just like, hey man, you want to go take a pottery class with me? Sure. Sure, bro. Let's go do it.
Yep. So now black-clad cops pour out of the choppers and into the city, followed by Hauk. So now this is the actual set that, or the exteriors were all shot, not in New York, because that would be ridiculous.
In what is described as the worst city they could find.
St. Louis, Missouri.
Yep.
Where, a huge fire in 1977 basically burned like 6 city blocks, and the city had no money, and so it just remained in that state when they got there, and they were like, holy shit, this is perfect.
So much so they were like, hey, can we borrow your bridge for a couple days?
Yeah, that's right.
And they were like, sure, I guess so.
Yep.
We're not doing anything with it.
So yeah, they also they snuck that plane wreckage in because the city was like, okay, look, we'll shut the power off for a few hours at night so you can shoot this, but you're not bringing this plane wreckage in. And they're like, fine, okay. And then they did it anyways, and they snuck it out as soon as they were done.
Well, I mean, they leave it as nice as you found it.
Right.
Which in this case was not very nice.
Right. And this was another thing, like when I was a kid and I was watching this, is this movie also has an extremely unique look about it. Like just the way that it is filmed, because it's all shot mostly at night. And most of the light sources are like, they're dim, a lot of fire, like flickering fire.
Oh yeah. John Carpenter said they shot, or he estimated that for a solid 2 months, he didn't see the sun.
Jesus Christ.
Because he would like go to sleep right as the sun was coming up, and he would sleep, and then he would wake up and start like, you know, looking at dailies or whatever.
Yeah. And so there's all these like really weird lens flares throughout the entire movie. And the reason for it is because they were using a new Panavision lens that was intended specifically for this kind of nighttime shooting.
Because everything is lit by fire.
Yeah. And in the same way that Carpenter and Dean Cundey, his DP, sort of pioneered the use of the Steadicam. Like they pioneered the use of this lens because throughout the 80s, you see this a lot, like from this point on, and you'll notice it's a lot of like horizontal lens flares from like headlights and streetlights and stuff like that. There's like a weird like halo around the edges because it's like an early Panavision like anamorphic lens of this type. So it's got that weird like edge warp. I'm not entirely positive. I think Dean Cundey had was directly involved in the development of this lens.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. And so like at the time they were doing this, like lenses and film stock for this kind of nighttime shooting existed. But like what they wanted was to have that sort of like depth of focus where they got the same sort of brilliance of distant lights that they got in the foreground, because there's a lot of shit that's happening like way off in the background. A lot of these shots, like in this one in particular, is the cops pour into the streets and Bob Houck is walking along looking all tough, trying not to fall down. And then Romero, the Duke's enter
Romero, the greatest character in this movie.
The Duke's dude, like he does that like laugh of his, and then he just kind of like steps in from the background into the foreground. And it's fucking amazing. Like they wouldn't.
And what is his name? I can't remember his name.
That's Frank Doubleday from
Frank
Assault
Doubleday.
on Precinct 13.
Yeah.
He plays the blonde gangster who shoots the little girl.
And I'm going to just go ahead and assume these are all his choices.
This character is amazing.
He looks like an anime character.
He looks. So they come into the scene, they find the pod in the rubble. It's been open, it's empty, the president's gone, and then out in the distance you hear that laugh, and here he comes, and he looks monstrous. His hair is crazy. He's got pointy monster
Blanca from Street Fighter 2.
Yes. And like his fucking face is all sunken and pale and shit. His eyes are crazy. Oh,
and he's walking in a way that it looks like his inner thighs are really, really chafed because he's like swinging his hips out as he walks. It's really fucking weird.
And then he walks up the Hawk.
It looks fantastic.
And he does this thing where he kind of readies himself, where he kind of like slumps forward and then kind of pops up as if he's about to give a performance.
Yeah, like he should have just exhaled very loudly and theatrically. That would have just sealed the deal. Yep. It's like how I greet absolutely every interaction.
It's incredible. Oh my God. Again, I'd never seen a character that like this before. And he left such an impression on me because also he's got these monster teeth in like over his real ones, and he's trying to talk around him. So his voice is a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you touch me, you die. It's almost like fucking Buffalo Bill, the way that he talks. And so, like, yeah, he's like, you touch me, die. If you're not in the air in 30 seconds, he dies. If you come back in, he dies. And then he presents a rag with the president's severed finger in it. And Hawk tries to, like, bargain with him, but he just counts down. He's like, until eventually they all get back in the air. And as they're leaving, he just goes, ah.
It's the greatest moment of the whole movie. There are two really, really fantastic moments in this movie. This is one of them. Both of them are his.
When he gets killed?
Yup.
So back at HQ, Hawk talks to the vice president, informs him of what they know, and that he has a plan. He wants to run a rescue mission. So now we cut to his office. He loads a pistol, and they bring in the bad dude in the leather jacket that we met earlier. And this scene, I can recite this scene word for fucking word. I love it so much. The way that these two talk to each other is just two tough guys trying to out-tough one another.
I like when he's just like, we know about something, Leningrad and Siberia. And I was like, just name the most Cold War places you can think of.
Yeah. So Hawk reads off his records. Snake Plissken, Special Forces. He fought in Russia. Sounds like he used to be a patriotic dude, but something turned him into the snarling anti-hero that he is now.
It's Elon Musk.
And he's in because he robbed the Federal Depository. And so, Hawk also is like, I was also in Special Forces Unit Texas Thunder. And he's like, we heard of you too, Plissken. And so like they have this weird relationship where they both seem to be veterans of this war, but they're just literally on opposite sides of this table. Mm-hmm. And so Hawk presents the plan. Snake Plissken gets a full pardon if he sneaks into the prison and brings the president out in 24 hours because the president
of what?
Yeah. I don't give a fuck about your war or your president.
When I saw this, I saw it in 2007, I think, in Brooklyn. And when this was like peak Afghanistan war.
Oh shit, yeah, okay.
Like Bush's rating, like approval ratings are in the fucking toilet. When he said that line, the entire theater cheered.
It's so great. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to see it a lot in like Instagram stories too. We're not at war, but until how long? But also
give it a month.
I don't give a fuck about your president. But like, again, like me 10 years old watching this scene, I'm like, I can't fucking believe how awesome this is. Cause because
you hated Reagan then too.
Oh, everybody hated Reagan back then.
Good reason. He was a bad person. So they run him through. The reason that they want him to do it is because he has experience with infiltration during the war. You flew the Gulf Fire in Leningrad. They run him through the topography of the prison. They introduce him to his weapons and a tracker. Which is the most 80s weapon. You could not find more 80s weapons than throwing stars and an Uzi with a silencer.
Yeah. I mean, what was it? Did you ever see Machete?
No.
Robert Rodriguez mimics this entire scene in Machete, like right down from the sort of face-to-face talk to a panning shot of all the weapons on a table. Yep.
Good choice.
So the plan is for Snake to fly a glider into the prison and land on the World Trade Center. They're also going to inoculate him against the diseases in the prison, but there's a catch. The medical officer injects him in the neck and then has Hawk tell him what he just did. Not only was he inoculated, they injected 2 microbombs into his carotid arteries to prevent him from flying away on the glider.
So what I love about this moment is at first it's 24 hours. Then the watch says 23 hours.
Yeah.
But then the tape has to be delivered in less than 22 hours. And if he's not back in 22 hours, he dies. So it's like, you're all over the place. Just pick one.
Right. Yep. If he's not back with the president in time, they'll dissolve and the heat of his body will detonate the charges. Not enough for an explosion, but enough to open up his arteries and bleed out internally. And then he says, Hawk says, something we've been playing around with. It's like, with who and why?
So apparently John Carpenter was he was going to just like leave it out and be like, nah, his plan was to just like let it be a ruse essentially. And like Plissken gets out at the end. And he was like, I really wanted to do that, but they didn't. I don't know if like they felt like that was a little too cynical.
Okay. So yeah, if Snake is back in time, they can neutralize the bombs with X-rays. So the whole impetus for the reason there's a timer on this is because the president was on his way to something called the Hartford Summit, where he was going to meet with the leaders of Russia and China and present them with a cassette, something about nuclear fusion.
But that's we never know we never find out what's on it.
Oh,
right?
It's a MacGuffin. It's 100% a red herring. There's no, we hear. I've seen people like I always assumed because
you hear a clip of it.
Yeah, and so what Snake says is like, what's on it, and he goes, you know anything about nuclear fusion? And he goes, all right, and then he goes, the future of the human race, Plissken, something you don't give a shit about. And so I always assumed that whatever was on that tape was going to be sort of like the thing that stops an all-out nuclear, like Armageddon. But I have read, like when I was doing all the research for this, apparently I read that wrong. Like this is supposed to be some kind of new fusion energy thing.
Because you do hear some of it later on, but that you hear like a very small portion of the tape. But like you'd think if it was that important, you wouldn't just have it as like a fucking Maxell 80-minute cassette tape.
Right.
Or maybe make 2. I don't know.
Right. So he's got to be back in time because if he doesn't, if he's late, no more Hartford Summit, no more Snake Plissken.
Boo.
Now he says, when I get back, I'm going to kill you.
I love how sassy Snake Plissken is.
Yeah, and the medical officer's name is Cronenberg. Yeah. So they drive Snake out to the glider, tow him up so he can fly in.
Is this glider a real thing? Because this looks like he's flying a paper airplane.
No, that is a real glider because they got it. They rented it for this production, and it's actually, you see it fly a little bit like the real one. Jesus. And then when when they landed it, because it's a real glider that's coming in for a landing, like with a real glider pilot, whatever they bumped it on in that set, like damaged it a little bit. They couldn't get their fucking money back. They had to buy it.
Damn.
Yeah. And like also again, incredible fucking close-up shot of him like flying the glider inside, because it's just like this tight shot of his face, like he's backlit by red. His fucking hair is like, like silhouetted in this shot. He's got that green look over his face.
Well, because he's got the 1980s computer. It's all green.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Also, totally analog shot. It's another model with luminescent tape on it.
Perfect. Oh yeah, that was what's his face's idea.
James, that was a Cameron idea. Yeah. So we get all of these are all model shots now that we're seeing. Like it was
they're pretty good.
Dennis and Robert Skotak from New World Pictures. They had just right before this, they had worked on Corman's Star Wars ripoff, Battle Beyond the Stars.
Oh, sexy Star Wars.
It's the sexy Star Wars with God, who is it? Sybil Dannick's in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, and like the model work in that movie is actually pretty impressive. And so like, they were like, shit, these guys can do this and they can do it cheap, because apparently they had gone to John Dykstra I don't believe it was an Industrial Light and Magic yet, but they were like, this is what we need. And Dykstra and his crew came back at them with what it would cost. And Carpenter was like, that's like my entire budget. Are you crazy? And so
I was like, well, it's Ray Harryhausen for you then, I guess.
Yeah, I know. And so in comes Corman and his guys, and they're like, listen, we can do this. And they do it really well. Like the model work and all of like the way that they shot it is incredibly cool. Like all of the water what you think is just like, the two rivers at the bottom of the city. It's literally just like a shiny surface on the floor that they built the model on top of.
And Corman was just like, hey, you're going to love this. I found these two guys in Russia. I pay them $25 a day and they work 18 hours a day and they're not even union. It's great.
Corman would have loved Fiverr.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they built an entire model of Lower Manhattan based on a fucking a pamphlet of New York City that they had.
Oh, they did a great job.
He did a great job. It's an incredibly detailed model. So yeah, also apparently that like those city models, the ones that they used for the computer graphics, were used in Blade Runner the next year.
A lot of this shit got reused in Blade Runner. Like a lot of the stuff that's shot on a studio, like a lot of the stuff on a lot, all got repainted and reused.
Fucking A, man. Great job. So Snake lands the plane as planned, but nearly runs off the edge of the building. Then he gets down to business, letting himself up into the building and riding down to the city.
I'm glad they don't make us watch him walk 50 flights down.
I know. They keep referring to these things that happened during the war without leading any kind of broader context to it. And it's not really important, but that was another quality of this movie that I fucking loved when I was little, is because I'm like, I wanted to know like what is all this shit that they're talking about? Like, it doesn't matter. It's just sort of implies it. It kind of lends a sort of broader, it's almost as though there's a bigger world happening around this movie.
Well, I probably wouldn't have been necessary at the time either. This is 1981. This is like, 6 years out from Vietnam? So like all this bad shit that happened, all this sort of weird geopolitical stuff that's going on, like everybody had a frame of reference for that. And so your imagination can sort of fill in all this sort of backstory you don't really need. And this is a very good use of ambiguity. We've watched a bunch of movies with a very bad ambiguity.
I think that's another thing that those Italian ones lacked, is like Dardano Sacchetti, it never occurred to him to sort of like, I don't know, just sort of put a little shit in the margins to kind of give it a little character. William Gibson.
Look, that man was writing. Do not besmirch him. He was writing 12 of those things a day.
He was a busy man. He had to make 30 movies in in an afternoon. So yeah, William Gibson, who's credited with being one of the architects of the cyberpunk subgenre of science fiction, credits this movie in particular with informing the broader world of the founding cyberpunk novel Neuromancer, because he does the exact same thing that Carpenter does by adding these weird throwaway lines and this kind of implied history about his characters that he never explains. And it had, when I read that, it had the same exact, and also I recognized it immediately as like there had to be some kind of connection there, because it has the same kind of flavor to it.
Well, and I think he lets his aesthetic do a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like the visuals of this, the language of it is all like, what all this stuff is. And he also works with it. Like, he's not working in a vacuum. Everything he's made is influenced by whatever's happening at the time. Like, Halloween is coming out at a time when serial killers are sort of on the rise, and there's a lot of paranoia about you don't know who your neighbors are anymore, like shit like that. Or Big Trouble in Little China is when there's a lot of weird anti-Asian sentiment happening in urban areas and a lot of violence. Like, it's all happening. So when people go to see these movies, they have a frame of reference for everything that's happening. So he can just sort of be like, I'm going to trust my viewer that they'll be able to fill in these gaps. And it will make their experience richer.
It absolutely works, because it just kind of it's enough to get the wheels turning in your imagination, Right.
And it's insignificant enough that it doesn't really matter.
Oh, no, it's not enough to make you, like, to get you preoccupied with it. Like, you're not going to be going, well, like, what about the fucking Gulf fire over Leningrad? Like, you don't give a shit about that.
It doesn't matter.
No, but it's enough to make you be like, what is going, like, who is this guy? Like, what did he do? Because also, they keep insisting that the Snake Plissken is like a fucking war hero, but like this snarling fiend is a hero.
He's a stud.
Obviously, something happened, So at the street level, Snake formally enters the city at the site of the plane crash. An entire airplane lies burning in the street. He checks his tracker, finds the president's bio signs. Following the tracker leads him to a theater where the prisoners are performing their own stage review for a mostly strung out audience.
What the hell is this scene? I have never fully understood it.
Okay.
It's kind of like weird hobo drag performance.
This was apparently informed by Donald Pleasance's experiences in World War II, because he was a radio operator in an RAF bomber that was shot down over France. And so when he and the surviving crew were captured by the Vichy government, they were put into a POW camp where he and the other POWs would like organize these performances for the other POWs.
Okay.
I don't know if they were drag performances, probably not.
Well,
but
there's a Peanuts movie where Snoopy and Charlie Brown and a couple of the others go to France. And Snoopy does his whole flying ace persona while he's there.
Yeah.
And it is a very similar experience where he goes to like these, he goes to have a root beer. Snoopy loves root beer. It's a thing. And he goes to get a root beer at this like cafe, and there's like this kind of performance happening. It's seems legit.
That's great.
Neither one of them would steer us wrong as far as I know. But look, I want the apocalypse to look like this. Something tells me it won't be quite so campy and hilarious. I guess we'll find out.
Right. Among the prisoners who are mostly watching the performance with despondence is one happy cab driver who just loves it.
Look, I want to love Ernest Borgnine, but kind of a piece of shit.
What, like the actor?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Here's the thing. I know nothing about him, and it makes it so that I can just enjoy Cabby.
Oh. Okay. Well, allow me to ruin it.
Oh,
for
great.
You.
I shouldn't have opened that door.
So Ernest Borgnine was, I think he was either the president of the Academy of Arts and Sciences for a while, or like big member.
Okay, makes sense. He's a tenured professional.
And so when Brokeback Mountain came out and was like up for all these awards, he refused to not only vote for it, he refused to even watch it. And he said if John Wayne were alive, he'd be rolling over in his grave. Now, set aside how ridiculous and nonsensical that statement is, it's extremely homophobic, and apparently that's the kind of person he was.
Outstanding.
So I was like,
fucking fantastic.
I was like, well, I used to like you, Ernest Borgnine. Or
So he you know, his character was loving it, but internally he was like, these queers.
yeah, he was like, gross. You guys are so gross. You wouldn't make it in World War II or on the Poseidon.
Also, fuck John Wayne. Despite the fact that another fucking plot device of this movie hinges on a John Wayne movie. Fuck John Wayne.
Yeah, John Wayne, also a huge piece of shit.
Yeah.
Glad he's dead. Real glad he's dead. Yeah. I hope it hurt and was scary.
No, when in all the promo images for this episode when he hits Instagram, we'll play that MDC song about him.
Nice.
Yeah. He spots Snake entering a side door and he follows him in. He recognizes Snake, but he utters the phrase, "I thought you were dead." And you're going to hear this a bunch of times. And everybody knows who Snake is for some reason. He's a war hero. But the reasons are never explored. They think he all died. And this is something that Carpenter cribbed from the John Wayne movie Big Jake. In that movie, whenever Jake McCandless introduces himself, people all react the same way, having heard of him, but also having heard that he was dead. Also, one of the dancers in this scene is named Low Moan Spectacular in the credits.
Nice. You know John Carpenter didn't come up with that one.
That is amazing. It's like I can't remember what it was. There's a series of like DVD, like Blu-ray extras that are all produced by the same company. They might be for Scream Factory, and they're all produced by somebody named Buffalo Bonker.
Okay, yeah. Who's that?
I don't know, but they got a crazy fucking name. Maybe this is where our future lies. We're going to produce a documentary where we go out and we find Low Moan Spectacular.
Okay, I bet it wouldn't be that interesting.
Probably not, but what a fucking name. What a weird name. I want to know who that is. So now Cabby warns Snake not to go into the theater basement where the track is indicating he needs to go. We're about to find out why. In one room, a bunch of punks dancing flaccidly to music nobody can hear assault a female prisoner.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I know that Snake Plissken is an anti-hero. He could have helped her out.
He could have shot those dudes, but no. Yeah. A little further in, Snake is distracted by a vagrant sitting by a fire while a couple of guys try and ambush him. He handles them both with no problem. And still further in, he spots a guy beating up who he thinks is the president. But when he deals with the problem, we find that it's regular Carpenter actor Buck Flower, drunk as hell, wearing the president's coat and bio tracker.
Now, why? But first of all, Buck Flower plays the same character in everything he's ever been.
Yep.
And this man is not really an actor. He's not. He kind of was, but
a professional wino.
Why is he famous?
I don't know. But
like,
John Carpenter loved him
because he was in a lot of like grindhouse trash. He's in some like adult films.
Oh, really?
Not as a actor, like a performer. He's like a side character or whatever. But like sexploitation stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, he just shows up in the weirdest shit. Like, I don't know why, but like he's the kind of guy that Robert Rodriguez would put in a movie.
Okay. I mean,
like,
that makes sense. Robert Rodriguez is probably as big a John Carpenter fan as we are.
Oh, he has good taste.
So frustrated, Snake smashes the tracker and radios in to tell them that the president is probably dead and that he's coming out. With 18 hours to go, Houck tells him to find the president.
So that's what I mean. Like, why would he, if he can't find the president, he's coming out. Well, then what? So they can send him back in? Or so they can kill him?
Well, I don't know. I think that
because those are his two options.
He thinks that if he comes out, he's just going to get this pardon.
Oh, so naive, Snake. So naive.
I know. Houck tells him to find the president or the tape, or he'll kill him if he tries to fly back in without him. So Snake heads back out to the streets, pulls up a chair, realizing how fucked he is. And off in the distance, a manhole cover opens, and a dude dressed in rags comes out, banging on the nearby covers, which also open. So more weirdos in rags climb out. He goes to have a closer look, but the music suddenly shifts, and he's surrounded by these sewer dwellers. So Snake takes cover in the Chock full of Nuts Diner, one of several diners located around New York City that are also associated with a brand of ground coffee you can buy at the grocery store.
Say, John Carpenter, you wouldn't mind putting my wife in your movie for a few minutes, would you?
I mean, he put his wife in the movie for a few minutes.
That's true.
It also happens that there's a woman hiding out in the diner who pegs Snake as a cop. Says, "You're a cop. I'm an asshole. So yeah, this is Season Hubley, who was married to Kurt Russell at the time.
You might remember her from.
I don't remember her in anything. People were like, she was in like All My Children. I was like, but not until like the 90s.
Yeah, she was in like a shitload of TV, like at one-off episodes of shit in the 70s. I think she was a model. She was in. I've only ever seen her in Hardcore, and she's in that movie Vice Squad.
Yeah.
That's it. Those are the only things I remember.
Yeah, it's like the only thing I know her from is Hardcore and Vice Squad. Yeah.
Yeah, but like stuff like she's in like an episode of Quincy.
Right.
In Vegas, stuff like that.
Yeah. So she tells him that they're crazies. They come up at the end of the month to scavenge for food, and then she recognized him, but she heard he was dead. So then she puts the move on Snake, trying to convince him to bring her out with him when he finds the president. They're about to kiss when the crazies bust in through the door and drag her under, implying that they're cannibals.
Mm-hmm.
Then they come for Snake, who shoots a bunch of them, climbs out the back and up into the apartments above, trying to outrun the crazies. Backed into a bathroom with nowhere to go, he blasts a hole in the wall with his gun and kicks through. And it is fucking gnarly.
It's real cool.
And the crazies are relentless, though. They keep chasing him. A cab pulls up at the end of the alley, and it's Cabby, and he invites Snake in, blasting the crazies back with a Molotov cocktail. Then Snake pulls a gun on Cabby, presses him for info on the president's whereabouts. He knows everything that goes on in the city and readily tells him that the Duke of New York has him.
Yeah, nobody sees the Duke.
No, Duke of New York, number one. Nobody sees the Duke. You meet the Duke once and you're dead.
Not nobody, not know how.
So Cabby takes him to the one man in the city who can get him to the Duke. So he takes him to a big ornate building where Adrienne Barbeau, then married to Carpenter, answers the door. Cabby convinces her to.
She comes into this with a great vibe. She's got a very different vibe. She's in The Fog right before this, the year before. And she is a very different character in this. And I know that she has had a totally respectable career. I think she should have been a bigger star.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great.
She's a great actor.
She's fucking fantastic. I met her at one of those horror conventions like 20 years ago. And when she was there promoting the remake of The Fog, a movie that she wasn't even in. Terrible. And I brought my copy of Escape from New York with me, and I paid her the, fucking $10 or whatever it cost at the time. And I said, "This is my favorite movie of all time." And she said, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah, she was like, watch something French, you idiot.
I was like, just sign the fucking DVD. You're here promoting a movie you're not even in.
Mm-hmm. And it's a terrible movie.
I've not seen it. I do not care to see that movie.
Do not.
Oh. So Brain works for the Duke. The lady at the door is Maggie. Brain's squeeze, Cabby says. Brain does things for the Duke. He distills alcohol, refines oil that he's pumping from a derrick right in the library. And then upon seeing him, Snake knows him right away as Harold Hellman, an old criminal associate of his.
What I love about this moment, and I wish they had leaned into this more, is the use of torchlight, because it gives it this very kind of like gothic fortress like feel to where they are.
Oh yeah.
And they do sort of like, they kind of do this a little bit, but I think they could have leaned in more.
Right. And I mean, that is suitable because they're shooting this at the philosophy section of the USC library. Yeah. And so, yeah, he says they were working some job in Kansas City 4 years ago with Fresno Bob. Brain ran out of them. Do you know what they did to Bob? I was like, no, Snake, tell us. What did they do to Bob?
Well, Fresno Bob sounds like a character you'd run into in Fallout.
Yeah. So Snake threatens to kill him unless he gives up the whereabouts of the president. The Duke has a plan, though. He's going to use the president as leverage to release everybody in the prison, but they don't know about the timer running on the president's relevance. After some pressure, Brain agrees to work with them. Brain also knows how to get across the 69th Street Bridge, which is a real bridge in New York, but not one that goes anywhere. So as they're leaving the library, the Duke rolls up in his Cadillac adorned with chandeliers.
Beautiful. It is stunning.
Ostensibly one of the coolest movie cars of all time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people be out there like buying DeLoreans so they can like make their little Back to the Future car. One of these days, I'm going to have a Cadillac with chandeliers on the front.
And you can see when the car is parked, You can see the electrical cord coming from the chandelier.
That's awesome.
It's great. It's like it's not even fancy.
That's great. Cabby bails on them, so Brain, Maggie, and Snake hide in the shadows and watch the Duke's entourage approach. The Duke wants Brain's diagram of the bridge, which has all the locations of the mines that the USPF has placed there.
This is when I paused the movie and I was like, Jesus Christ, it's almost over.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie goes along at a quick pace.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Duke waits. Snake sneaks up on one of his drivers and knocks him out. Again, another Dick Warlock appearance.
Yep.
Stealing a station wagon to drive uptown to the president's location. And on the way, they have to drive up Broadway, which is lined with criminals who start throwing shit at the car.
It's like that scene in National Lampoon's Vacation when they go downtown.
Yeah, that's right. Eventually, they drive up a barricade of piled cars in the street. Snake crashes through it in reverse, giving the guys on the street the slip. They arrive at a train yard. Brain tells them where to go. Brain and Maggie get out to distract the guards on the train while Snake climbs on top of the train and sneaks in. And this one has a really awesome shot too, because this is where they start to use. They're using the Steadicam a lot, and so like they follow Brain and Maggie up to it, and then they talk to the Duke's guys, and then there's this subtle sort of lift of the camera so that you can see the top of the train, and just out of focus, you see Snake go running off into the darkness.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the first time I was like, I'm watching the movie. I was like, oh, they're using the Steadicam.
Yeah, and they use it a lot. They use it a lot in this movie.
You can feel it in this scene.
Yeah. Snake manages to kill the two guards with throwing stars that are protecting the president. And they release him, but not before taking an arrow in the leg from one of their crossbows. And then Snake and the president are attacked outside by the Duke's guys. He does his best to fight them off, but there's too many of them, and they subdue Snake. And the Duke and Romero are also on the scene.
So this is when I realized they try to make Isaac Hayes look really big, like giant in this, because he's got on like big cowboy boots with lifts in them.
Yeah.
And he's got like a big hat on.
He's got those weird gloves too.
Yeah. And he's always next to Romero, who's sort of a smaller guy. And so when they put him next to Harry Dean Stanton and Adrian Barbeau, it's like, oh, he's just of average height.
Yeah. The Duke, he goes up on him. He's also heard of Snake, and he heard he was dead as well. So he's about to have Snake killed when Brain stops him, insisting that Snake is serving some important purpose and that they need him. So the Duke knocks Snake out with a tire iron. And USPF helicopter pilots are also sweeping the city looking for Snake and the president, but they find nothing. As a matter of fact, the city is like silent in a way that's spooky. The Secretary of State wants to invade the city with the military, but Houck talks him down. And then at the Duke's hideout, Snake wakes up to find himself on guard. The Duke has Snake's gun and the president cuffed to the wall. He's taking shots, has him repeat the phrase that he taught him. He says,
Hey, number one.
You are the Duke of New York. You are a number one.
That's a beautiful American accent.
Apparently, he tried, like towards the end of the movie, Donald Pleasance tries to affect like a Southern accent.
It's so weird. Every time he speaks in this movie, it is so fucking weird. He sounds so strange.
It is my favorite in a movie that is a little preoccupied with the details. This is the one that I just don't fucking get. Like Carpenter must have thought that this casting choice was just funny or something.
I think he probably didn't care. Like he was probably just like, who gives a shit? No one's gonna notice.
Right. Like I've worked with this guy before. I just love him because that's also a John Carpenter thing, is just working with the people that he's worked with before, like over and over and over again.
And you got to appreciate it.
Yep. So the Duke shoots the president's briefcase. Among the papers that fall out is the coveted cassette tape. Romero picks the tape up and puts it to his ear before pocketing it. I love this detail. And then helicopters fly into Central Park to address a large group of guys who are trying to get their attention. And when they land, the dudes run away. The cops find the briefcase containing the papers with some of Snake's gear. And this was just shot in a fucking field in California. And the skyline is literally a painting done by James Cameron on a piece of glass that's superimposed over the rest of the shot.
Yeah, haven't you ever seen how they do matte paintings?
Yeah, but like you could see pictures of this, like of him doing it. It is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you hear about this practice in theory, but to like actually see the application of it.
Yeah, to watch, everybody should go to YouTube and watch matte paintings being done. It's really impressive.
Yeah. Also, John Carpenter is the crewman in the helicopter who is, looking out the door. He has a couple of cameos in this. He's also the violin player in the theater. And was it Nick Castle is the piano player.
Mm-hmm. And I believe the guy who voices Squidward is also in there.
I saw that detail as well. Back at Brain's place, he and Maggie brainstorm where Snake's plane could possibly be. Central Park has too many trees. Port Authority is too low. Brain gestures to Battery Park on the map as he says this. The only place that he could have landed was the World Trade Center. So the USPF HQ, they read the note that the Duke left them. Amnesty for all prisoners for the president's life. Thinking that Snake is dead, they load the cops into the helicopters, get them ready to raid the prison. Hawk, meanwhile, continues to try and reach Snake on the radio. And in the prison, the Duke's guys lead Snake into an arena where he is expected to fight the Duke's champion, a 7-foot-tall bruiser with one hell of a mustache.
Yeah, we'll call him Zangief. Yes. That was my second Street Fighter 2 reference. Because the guy, I think it's interesting that this guy has a very distinctly Russian look to him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. God, now that you mention it, he's got to be the inspiration for Zangief.
Looks just like him.
He looks just like him.
And Romero looks just like Blanco.
The Duke announces,
except he's not green.
I wonder if he has an electrical charge attack.
Well,
he's
very theatrical.
The Duke announces they're going to kill Snake and leave the prison in the morning with Snake's head on the hood of his car.
Gross.
No. So they fight with bats at first, Snake barely holding this guy off while Maggie and Brains sneak into the room where Romero is watching the president. The president is wearing a blonde wig now.
And my note says, Donald Pleasance, is it a wig?
Nice. Oh, we got to have it as, is it a wig post?
Mm-hmm.
So when Romero tries to break up the search, Brains stabs him and Maggie shoots the other 3 guards.
And his death is beautiful.
The look on his face. He must have practiced that in a mirror.
And it's such a subtle, like, you barely see it happen.
Yeah.
But he may as well just get him a fainting couch.
It's so great. He's such a great character. Oh my God. And then they escape with the president while Snake continues to fight. They take the bats away and they replace it with a trash can lid for a shield and a bat with nails in it. And it's a pretty good fight. It looks like it's curtains for Snake when his shield is torn away and the nails get tangled up. But he recovers, hits the fighter in the stomach, and then on the back of the head.
And so apparently he really had to hit him?
He had a block of wood strapped. That strap around his neck was there as, could you see it? He's wearing like a collar throughout the fight. And it was mostly just like, oh, like, look at this freak. But like, it has served a practical application because that's what they attached the block to. So Kurt Russell has a bat, and like you can see the nails kind of jiggling around a little bit, like they're obviously rubber, but there was one that was real, and he had to hit that block with that nail because he lets go of the bat for a second, and it just sticks there as the guy dies.
Risky.
Oh my God. I would be sweating fucking bullets if they were like, okay, Bryan, now take this bat and hit this living human person with it in a way that could potentially end their life.
I mean, I guess it depends on who the person is.
Right. I'd have a nail bat fight with Elon Musk.
Yes. He'd bring his child with him.
And I'd go through him too.
Yeah, kill that little kid.
In the confusion, Snake spots the tracer bracelet on one of the Duke's guys, and he lunges for it, activating it. As everybody chants Snake's name, one of the Duke's guys tells him that Brain ran off with the president. They all run out of the place, leaving Snake on his own, and Hawk calls off the raid. So now Snake arrives at the top of the World Trade Center as Maggie and Brain hold off the gangsters who are attempting to cut the glider loose. They're Indians?
I guess. Look, it was the 80s.
I know. They're unsuccessful. The plane tips off the side. Snake and his crew run down to the street to find the missing cassette, not knowing that Brain has it. When they get to Brain's car, they find that Duke cut them off at the pass and holds them at gunpoint.
I mean, come on. You had to know the car was a ruse. The thing looks like it's made out of cardboard boxes.
And at some point while they were up there doing this, they took an entire engine block out of that car.
Mm-hmm.
After a bit of back and forth with the Duke, Snake uses his pistol to shoot at a nearby steam pipe, buying them some time to get out of the building and down onto the street where they catch a ride with Cabby. Snake tries to pressure Bryan into giving up the location of the cassette, but it turns out the Cabby had it all along, having traded it
traded it for his hat.
Yeah, for his hat with Romero. Snake pops it into the tape player to make sure, and then they race onto the 69th Street Bridge with the Duke chasing them in his awesome car.
And it is actually a bridge that they bought for $1.
That's right. Again, this is another one of those fucking awesome shots where it's like a street level shot of the Duke's car like shooting off underneath the bridge into the distance, and then the camera just like lifts, and we see the cab like driving across onto the bridge. Like, what a goddamn shot!
Oh, that's why he's the best cinematographer in the world.
Fucking A. They drive across the bridge quickly, navigating sharply to avoid the mines, but occasionally detonate them. And the Duke is.
I mean, if this wasn't ripped directly from a video game.
I know. This is very Atari. Like, you you just gotta like River Raid or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he's also like driving along, detonating the mines. Snake's car craps out, eventually splitting neatly in two.
Yeah, it's just perfectly down the middle, just sheared in half.
It's a very,
how a car explodes.
It's very cartoony, and I love it.
It's very Looney Tunes.
Forced to go on foot, Snake checks the remains of the car, finds Cabby dead.
I think we're supposed to feel bad, but the whole Brokeback Mountain thing, you ruined it.
Yep. On they go with the Duke not far behind. Bryan takes a wrong turn, ends up stepping on a mine, flying into the air.
Now, I do feel a little bad for Bryan because he's a little endearing.
Right. Maggie, broken up by his death, demands the gun and fires on the Duke's car as it approaches. It doesn't do much to slow him down, and Snake probably could have used that gun because the Duke just plows into her and continues.
But he got I feel like he's like, I respect you. I respect you for what you're doing, Maggie.
Right. Also, we have failed to mention that Isaac Hayes affects this weird facial twitch throughout the entire movie. No reason for it. It's just this weird little character detail.
And I must say, we haven't said it. Isaac Hayes, pretty good actor in this.
He's great. Yeah, he's fucking great. Very talented dude.
Yeah.
Yep. So Snake and the president arrive at the wall as the cops lower a rope to pull them up. Snake helps the president escape, but before he can get on the rope, the Duke shows up with Snake's gun and causes him to jump down and take cover.
And this is the first time that I noticed how fucking awesome his costume is.
The Duke's costume?
His whole outfit is really cool.
Yeah. So they fight a bit. Snake gets the best of him, running to the rope with seconds to go before the charges explode in his neck. He's being lifted out when someone up top stops the rope, leaving him to hang. The Duke is about to shoot Snake, but gunshots ring out, and it's the president, taunting the Duke as he shoots him.
The weirdest line delivery.
It's so fucking weird. But also, he shoots him like fucking ED-209 in RoboCop. Like, he gets shot a lot.
He does, but he's like, you are the Duke, a number one.
A number one. Yep. When the Duke is dead, he resumes the rope and Snake goes up and over. How could Romero are there? Cronenberg is there. He's about to deactivate the charges, but Hulk stops him until he hands over the tape. With seconds to go, they hit the bombs, and Snake anxiously watches his watch, waiting to die, but nothing happens.
2 seconds.
Yep. For the first time in 24 hours, Snake relaxes. So now, as a makeup crew readies the president for his broadcast address at the Hartford Summit, Snake approaches him and asks him what he thinks of the human cost of rescuing him. The president offers him some hollow words of thanks, and Snake limps off, disgusted.
But as he does it, so he asks him about all the people who died, and he looks at a mirror when he answers, and he gives this like really hollow political answer. And it's like, I think that's the pessimism and the cynicism that people are a little put off by, but it's like, look around you.
I know. And it really is the fucking exclamation mark on the entire movie.
Yeah. And that's why like what he does next doesn't feel that nihilistic.
No, and I guarantee you, like every fucking president of the last like 50 years probably would have given a very canned answer like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because fuck him.
Yeah.
So on his way out, Hawk asks Snake if he's going to kill him, but Snake's too tired.
Yeah.
So he offers him a job. We'd make one hell of a team, Snake.
Listen, Snake Plissken doesn't work for the man.
It's just the name's Plissken. And so now the president addressed the Hartford summit as the cassette played for the Chinese and Russian leaders. Instead of his important energy discovery, we get Bandstand Boogie, the song that Cabby listened to in his car. Elsewhere, Snake walks away, yanking the tape out of the actual cassette. He throws the remains away. Fade to black, roll credits over that fucking awesome theme song.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
What a film. What a film.
Greatest action movie ever made.
Now, I guess my closing thoughts. I think the movie feels a little dated, at least visually dated.
Sure. I think that the 4K, like high def, I mean, really, even going back to like fucking DVD, like just not a movie that you're not looking at on like a VHS copy. Like it looks like a movie made in 1981 on a relatively small budget.
It feels that way. I think otherwise, though, it holds up pretty well. But, you know, action movies, I feel like action movies can go either way. They either hold up well or they feel completely dated, usually because of like some underlying tension or like political agenda. It's like, if you're just going to make some fucking high-flying action movie, it's probably going to, you know, age well because there's not much to age badly.
Right.
Except for like racial stereotypes usually. This one I think does pretty well, even though it because it does have an agenda, or at least it has a political perspective. But it's a sort of opaque criticism of the government that's like, it will always feel relevant.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like, it doesn't feel dated
like
that way.
I have thought about this movie objectively. I mean, because apart from the fact that like it is just sort of tied to this very particular moment of my childhood, I do have to kind of step aside from it and really kind of think about it as a movie that stands on its own and not this thing that has this kind of like, that has this, its hooks in my sort of emotional memories.
Yeah, because Michael Blowen disagrees.
But it is, like it holds up extremely well. I mean, apart from the fact that it's a little dated. There are action movies that have since come out that are very heavily inspired by it, made by very competent filmmakers that I feel it kind of superseded a little bit. It's great. It has really fantastic performances, really great characters. The action is, it's quick, it's fast. You know, it's not terribly choreographed or anything like that. There's not a lot of like long fight scenes apart from that one with the wrestler character. It's just a fucking comic book movie that succeeds on every fucking level. Incredible soundtrack. It
has a great cast too.
Yeah. Everything about this movie. It is 10 out of 10, you know, and then like just whatever it was in that particular moment in my life, it just connected. It was just the perfect movie at the perfect time. And I will take this to my grave. I fucking love this movie. I will watch it. I watch it all the goddamn time. Like I said, I have watched this in Espanol. So yeah.
See.
Yeah. There was a time when it came out on DVD, the only available version of it was on some, like, it had the movie and it had a trailer and nothing else. And so I was like, one of these days they are going to release like a special edition of this with like extras and shit to really kind of make it worth your while. I'm not going to
They did in 2006.
Yeah. And so when that happened, up to that point, I refused to buy it because I didn't want to have to fucking buy it again. Little did I know, years later, I'm going to be double dipping Blu-rays constantly.
Yeah, I have owned 7 different copies of The Fog.
Yeah, like there's a new version of this that I believe Arrow put out, maybe, or maybe
it's the same. It's the Studio Canal. It's the Studio Canal transfer.
Yeah, and so
Scream Factory put it out in the box set, like the one with the 7-inch.
Right, and so I keep fucking side-eyeing it, like, God, maybe I'll get that one, but like I just got a fucking 4K version of it. And it's probably just the same fucking supplemental materials.
It is.
Plus all the, you know, whatever, all the stuff that like they stuff into it to kind of like, you know, make it like a collector's edition.
I keep buying Black Christmas. I mean, you never know.
I'm gonna cave eventually. It's got a really good like art, like cover art and stuff like that too. It's Yeah, it's cool. So fucking A, this movie, what a movie.
Yep. Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
So yeah, do yourself a favor, treat yourself. Watch Escape from New York. You know, if you hadn't watched it already in preparation for this episode.
But watch it again.
But just watch it again. I watched it like twice in the last 2 days. So yeah. So yeah, that having gotten that out of the way, what's next on 99-cent rental?
Well, before all of that, just to remind everybody, we are going to be Bring Me the Axing next week.
2 years.
2 years. Night of the Living Dead. Iconic masterpiece. And then in 2 weeks, 99-cent rental. Coming back to a genre we both love with our enthusiastic look at the first Lone Wolf and Cub movie, Sword of Vengeance.
Oh my God. Get a little blood spray on you.
I love it. I love all that.
It's going to be fantastic. Yeah. We haven't done samurai movies before.
No, as much as we both love samurai movies.
Yeah. This is
then again, we also were like, we're going to start this thing and we're just going to do Italian movies. We've done like 2.
Right. Yeah. We gotta put a little garlic on it in the future. Get a little more Italian movies in it.
What you mean, those linguini losers? Those guys?
Right. All right. So yeah, that's our look at Escape from New York, the greatest movie ever made. We'll be back in a week with an equally as in-depth look and sort of lovingly breakdown of George A. Romero's fucking seminal singular piece of horror, Night of the Living Dead. And then we're going to get you all bloody in 2 weeks. 99-cent rental returns with Lone Wolf and Cubs, Sword of Vengeance.